Back in the 1980s, when arcades were super big, developers had the challenge of making games that were easy to play but killed you quick. One of my favorite arcade classics, Dig Dug, is literally just running around the map inflating enemies. Almost everybody that played lost more quarters than they wanted, the arcades would have a massive profit off of one machine, and a few customers became a little too obsessed with a certain aspect of the game. The fun of these older arcade games are to see how far you can get with the smallest amount of cash. So when home consoles started to become popular again, the focus was changed to how difficult you can make a 30-minute game without it feeling unfair or frustrating. Welcome, Web of Wires. Video games are all about having fun and feeling fair no matter what situation you're in. So when video games have too much of a difficulty curve or it feels way too easy for long periods of time, the game might just not be fun anymore. You need that perfect balance between winning and losing while having all odds stacked on you. In order to find out if and why games are becoming too easy, we need to jump back to the NES, the first system that developers were challenged with making the first games for homes. The Nintendo Entertainment System was filled with all sorts of unfair and cryptic game mechanics. The goal of NES games was to turn a 30-minute game into an impossible gauntlet that you'll be tackling for months. I beat Castlevania for a Halloween special. It will just throw a bunch of random enemies at you with impossible jumps to make. This game is roughly an hour long, but with how much you die because of sloppy controls and unbalanced enemies, I can guarantee you this game will not be fun to beat without a rewind feature. Towards the end of the system's life, developers started realizing how much fun it is to win instead of getting high scores. Mario 3, one of the most treasured games on the system, will take you a total of 5 hours to beat with the sloppy game mechanics, and 5 hours to beat without the sloppy game mechanics. Mario 3 is one of the most polished and thought out games in the retro era, and was truly ahead of its time. But why does it still hold up today? Well, the answer to that is simple. Mario 3 had great checkpoints, but never overwhelmed the player with them. It had a great level design and was something nobody had ever seen before. A game that slowly increases in difficulty, which is great, because there's one set difficulty everybody has to play. I think giving the player options on how they play the game is great, but there comes a point in time where picking your own difficulty can feel fake and make you second guess your decision. This is what happened in Cave Story when it recommended on my first playthrough to do easy mode. For someone new to games, this would be a great option, but for someone who plays a lot of platformers, this made the game too easy. I think modern games should really take what Mario 3 did and slowly progress the difficulty. Lots of franchises starting in the Xbox 360 era have a set formula. Games like Call of Duty are popular because it's a new game each year that is almost impossible to screw up. It can get repetitive and annoying at times, but overall, the gameplay is still the same as 10 years ago and the graphics look as good as I feel like it did that year. As a franchise, it needs some changes, but it continues to chop the charts each year with the biggest reason being how simple it really is. Run and shoot. Everything kills you quickly. A new player could get kills in a deathmatch and an experienced player can die to them and they can still win. Reason being because in team games, other players can pick up after you, so even though the team probably hates you, it is much easier to feel rewarded for being bad since you participated. It's these simple team games that lure in a bigger market than any other gaming community, which is why when a game like BioShock is easy, nobody second guesses it because everybody feels included. A lot of games are too easy for most people. I think inclusion is great, but getting around how difficult the game is to new players can be difficult. My favorite attempt at easing a new player in is Mario Odyssey's Assist mode. It is the exact same game, but you get double HP and you can't die from falling off a ledge, and the game leads you where you're supposed to go all the time. It is brilliant, it is simple, and it works. Dark Souls is a game that isn't too inclusive. It is really something for people who want a challenge. I don't think that this should have an easy mode because the fun of these games isn't beating them, it's mastering them, which goes right back to the arcade games. If you can effectively teach the player how simple your game really is, guide them whilst also keeping a more skilled player engaged, then you know you have a good game on your hands. Which brings us to now. Virtual reality is new, indie games are hotter than ever, and the biggest launch title for the PS5 is a remake of a beloved game targeted to people who will buy and play a PS5 day one. Celeste, my favorite game of all time, showed how difficult gameplay can help tell a story. Although VR is nowhere near ready for the average person, Half-Life Alyx and The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners are great examples of how VR games might not ever have to be difficult to be fun, and I think that moving forward, there will be a bigger market and more challenging games with the same formulas as the 1980s arcade classics. So, to answer the title in this video, yes, video games are becoming too easy for the less casual market. Both indie games on the rise and difficult games having a higher demand, I think this generation will be filled with something that will challenge us, as well as keeping newer or less experienced players included with what we play.